Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, and welcome to a new season of Adventures in Compliance. In this season, we are going to review the short stories which appeared in the Strand Magazine from July 1891 to June 1892 and were collected in the book The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Over the next 12 episodes, I will be reviewing each story and mine them for leadership, compliance, and ethical lessons. In this episode, we take up The Five Orange Pips, which was released in November 1891 in the Strand Magazine. It picks up on a theme that we see throughout the Sherlock Holmes oeuvre, which is that many of the dastardly adversaries turn out to be foreigners, in this case, American Southerners. Our story begins when a young man named John Openshaw seeks Holmes' assistance. Openshaw has received a mysterious letter from abroad containing 5 dried orange pips and the initials KKK, along with a demand to put the papers on the sundial. Both his uncle Elias, who had lived in America for many years, and his father had previously received similar letters and died under suspicious circumstances. Holmes deduces that KKK represents the Ku Klux Klan, the racist group from America, and the 5 orange pips are a death threat, previously sent to John's relatives who had disobeyed orders to surrender certain papers. Elias Openshaw, John's uncle, had made enemies during his time in America due to his involvement with the group, and the papers likely hold some dangerous information about them. Holmes advises John to return home, find the papers, and turn them over. Unfortunately, before this could happen, John is found dead, apparently drowned, after falling into a small river. Holmes sends a reply to the Klan's address in America, mimicking their style by including 5 orange pips in the envelope. He suspects that the people responsible for John's death were on a sailing ship called the Lone Star. While Holmes is unable to bring the criminals to justice directly, the Lone Star is reported to have been lost at sea, implying a form of poetic justice. The story ends on a somber note, and it is one of the few cases that Holmes is unable to solve in time to prevent a tragic death. It is surprising, or perhaps given the prevalent attitudes in late Victorian Britain, perhaps not, that many of Sherlock Holmes' most dastardly adversaries turn out to be foreign: subcontinental Indians, Mormons, Australians, and even Americans. England, of course, had its share of criminals, but even the lovely Irene Adler, that woman, had been an American. And here comes a band of exotic miscreants in the form of Southerners. The story begins with Holmes and Watson being visited by John Openshaw and relating the tale. The story was set in 1883, and 2 years later, or rather earlier, the KKK had sent a letter to Openshaw's uncle demanding return of the papers. Holmes quickly deduces that KKK stands for Ku Klux Klan, the racial group or racist group in America. And he deduces that there were some papers that Elias had brought back from America, which may damage the KKK. Holmes instructs Openshaw to go and retrieve the letters. However, before he can get the letters from Openshaw, it turns out the Klan is able to murder Openshaw on his way home. Holmes had already guessed that whoever had sent the 5 pips was aboard a sailing ship. The delay between communications and world-spanning reach of the sender had dictated that factor. Checking recent shipping records, he discovered that one vessel, a sloop out of Georgia, the Lone Star, had docked in England in early 1883 and in Scotland in 1885, and then London. Holmes had notified the police, but he also mailed the 5 orange pips to the captain of the Lone Star, which promptly upped anchor and left England. The murderous fiend would not escape, however, and the crew was reported vanished with all hands lost. This is one of the few stories that Holmes is not able to resolve satisfactorily, but at the end, perhaps justice was served that the ship went down. So what are the leadership lessons from the 5 pips? Number 1, be proactive. Holmes was proactive in investigating the case of the 5 orange pips, even when there was limited information available. Leaders should be proactive and take the initiative to solve problems and achieve their goals. Persevere. I can't think of a more applicable lesson for a chief compliance officer. Holmes persevered in his investigation of the case, even when the trail seemed to go cold. CCOs should also persevere and not give up in the face of challenges or obstacles. Number 3, stay focused. Holmes stayed focused on his investigation and did not let distractions or other cases interfere with his work. Leaders and CCOs should also stay focused on their goals and avoid being sidetracked by distractions. Use creative thinking. Holmes uses creative thinking and innovative approaches to solve the case of the 5 orange pips, and CCOs also encourage and embrace creative thinking as it can lead to new solutions and new breakthroughs. As I often say, as a CCO, you're only limited by your imagination. Number 5, be vigilant. Holmes was vigilant and kept a watchful eye for any clues or developments in the case of the 5 orange pips. CCOs should also be vigilant and keep an eye out for any opportunities or threats that might impact their organization. I can't think of a better example or better way to characterize ongoing monitoring around a best practices compliance program. Not only will it help detect any threats, it's going to take several steps forward to prevent threats. Of course, the 3 components of any compliance program are to prevent, detect, and remediate. So if you can detect, you're obviously going to stop something or at least know when it first pops up. But if you can move to prevent, then you are not in a position of defending. You have stopped something before it becomes a legal violation, such as an FCPA violation. So prevention is also always better than detection. And I can't think of a better way to characterize ongoing monitoring to move your compliance program from a detect mode to a prevent mode. I hope you've enjoyed this story of the 5 orange pips. I'm a little uncertain about the justice played out at the end when the entire ship vanishes with the crew lost. But clearly Holmes wanted to send, I think, a very strong message, particularly applicable now in 2023 with the re-rise of racism in America, that it should not be tolerated. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox again. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Adventures in Compliance. If you've enjoyed this episode, I hope you'll subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever great podcasts are listened to. If you are a lover of Sherlock Holmes and would like to come on an upcoming podcast and talk about your favorite short story with me, I'd love to have you. As you could probably tell, I'm a huge Sherlock Holmes fan, and I find a lot of compliance lessons learned in the Sherlock Holmes oeuvre. Adventures in Compliance is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.